What's up, YouTube? I'm Brett from Rants. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. We're on the road to 1,000, and we hope you guys can help us get there. Alright, so this is The Bad Batch Episode 1 review. I'm a little bit late on it, simply because I've just had a bad head cold of late. Cannot shake it, it seems like, no matter how much I try. But I'm going to try to get back on track. I know I've been off track the last couple of weeks. But, hey, just got to keep moving forward. Alright, so, as far as The Bad Batch is concerned, overall, I really enjoyed it. I did. I really enjoyed this. Going into it, I didn't know exactly what to make of it. Because, we had the Clone Wars. Then, of course, we've had Rebels. And we've had a few other little shows. And it seemed like every other animated series that they do kind of feels a little bit different from the previous one, whether it be animation style, whether it be the feel of it, how child friendly it is. A lot of people complain. They're like, oh man, these animated series, they're just too child friendly. And I'm like, some of the darker moments of all of Star Wars have come from these animated series. The Clone War was dark in some ways. We saw some brutal deaths on that show. I mean, I think people in a lot of ways think to themselves, oh, well, man, Star Wars is like for adults. No, it's not. Star Wars was never for adults. Star Wars is for like kids to adults. I think people sometimes forget it and they look at these animated series and they're like, nah, I'm a grown up. I don't want to watch this. But I'm telling you, if you're that way, you're missing out a lot. Because I feel like some of the best Star Wars comes from these animated series. Now, would I put this, The Bad Batch, up there with The Mandalorian Season 2? Probably not. Although I will say this, there's one problem with Season 2 of The Mandalorian, which I found few problems with that season, was I felt like sometimes the acting is a little stiff. Of course, that's not something you get from a lot of these animated series. In fact, everything just flows perfectly throughout this episode. The only thing that I will say about this show that I'm a little bit worried about, I'm a little bit worried that it is relying way too much on cameos and not allowing the story to just progress fluidly. We don't always need callbacks. Talked about this with other shows when it comes to Mayans and so forth like that with Sons of Anarchy. I feel like sometimes new shows appear and they're a little bit worried that the original fan base won't like it, so they bring familiar faces back. And sometimes I think it works, sometimes it don't. I feel like they need to really kind of keep it at a minimum. Even though, okay, you can, look, they had Saw Gerrera. We got to see Caleb Dune. We got to see him when he was a kid. That was really cool. Of course, people remember him from Rebels, as Kanan. Which I thought that was actually a cool throwback thing to it, but I'm like, it didn't have to be Caleb Dune. That could have been anybody else. At first I didn't even recognize him. I mean, to be honest with you, at first I was like, everything looks good in this except his voice. Like, they show him as this little kid and he's got this really boisterous voice, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. But I'll just go ahead and start with this. The opening crawl. I mean, the opening crawl, where you see the Clone Wars, and then it burns away, and you see the Bad Batch. I thought that was really cool how they did that. I thought that was, just kind of a nice little introduction that is like, hey, you know what? This is going to feel a lot like the Clone Wars, but it's actually a completely different show. I don't know if they should have done the narrator thing. Maybe that was a little too Clone Wars kind of behavior in a way. Maybe they should leave that off, but it looks like that's something that they're just going to stick with from the very beginning. Now, the death of Jedi Master Depa Billaba, I think is her name, who is, of course, the master of Canaan. Um, I thought that could have done a little bit better on that. That kind of come off as a really weird scene. Of course, you have the clones turning her on her after Order 66, and you kind of have the Bad Batch kind of not knowing exactly what to do. I felt like while they're sitting there watching, these clones attack this Jedi, I'm kind of like, if these are the good guys, why are they not helping her? Like, she's being shot at by these other clones. Like, why are they not, presenting themselves as a good guys? But at the same time, you could say, hey, that's a really confusing situation. You're a clone yourself. Even though you're a lot different, you're still a clone of, these the Bad Batch is. And, they probably don't know exactly what's going on in that situation, what they should do. There's still a big part of them that's all about missions, and even though they showed loyalty to the Jedi a lot more than, of course, the clones that basically lost their free will. Another thing, a problem that I had with the very first scene of that, the Clone War. I mean the clones in the Clone Wars series were actually really, really dependable. They were really good at what they did. They were really good at fighting. I felt like when the Bad Batch come in there and just completely and totally just, the five of them or four of them just completely and totally just wiped out everything, all those droids. And I thought that was a little bit kind of stupid, a little bit. I thought they should have, yes, I get it. They want them to, appear like this badass characters that are just going in there and just, taking out people left and right. But at the same time, I kind of felt like it made the regular clones looked really inferior in a lot of ways. Which, I mean, you could go with that, but what is it? Echo that is, a regular clone, and, he's a part of the Bad Batch. I mean, they made him look a lot more capable than any of these other clones. So that was kind of a little bit of a problem that I did have with this. The opening situation of it. But overall, throughout this episode, the clones never felt the same to me. And I get it. Order 66 has already happened. They're all in this new mode of, just there to take orders. But I felt like that was kind of the eeriness of this episode, but also one of the worst aspects of this episode is we didn't really get to see the clones really do anything that was outside of just taking orders. Like, I mean, yes, I get it. They could still be loyal to the Empire without actually losing the personality that they had, to a certain extent. So I'm a little bit disappointed that they all just kind of made them really generic in this. And so that was a big, big disappointment for this episode. I just felt like a lot of these clones just kind of felt like a dime a dozen. I actually, to a certain extent, agree with Tarkin in a lot of ways. It seems like these clones are very inefficient and maybe need to be replaced. Now, at the same time, I'm like, I don't really understand his ideas. Of course, it's kind of like a running gag that clone troopers can't hit anything. Well, it was simply because those weren't the clones. These were just an army that was, brought in. That these people don't have any special powers, and they're not really capable, and they show it in a lot of different ways. And so at the same time, I'm like, yeah, it seems like these clones are inefficient, but at the same time, how is bringing in just random people that really aren't bred for war, how is that really going to change that situation that much? So I was a little bit like, yeah, I kind of see where he's coming from, but I kind of felt like they should have given it a little bit better reason. It does look like the further away they get from the source, when it comes to their genetic source, the worse they get. And it looks that way. It really does look that way. And you know what? We'll just have to see if that's really the case in future episodes. But it does seem like that is the case so far. Now, as far as Camino or the Caminoans, or I forget what they're called, there was a really, really creepy vibe to that whole clone center there. Um, lot creepier than what I thought there would be, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not really a dark place necessarily. But I tell you, they really gave off that vibe of it being a really dark, sinister place, like something bad is going to go on at any moment. I kind of enjoyed that horror movie kind of feel that they had going on for the most part of it. When it comes to the Bad Batch, just moving around, and Omega, I think is her name, just roaming around in the area, and you know that something really sinister is going to happen at any moment. So I was like, I kind of enjoyed that feel to it. It felt a little bit different than what we've seen in the Clone Wars series. I never really got that vibe necessarily, that there was impending doom, but I did in this episode. So I thought that part was actually really cool. Now, as far as the little girl Omega, um, can't say I'm a huge fan of her. She come off as really annoying. Of course, there's going to be some grand secret when it comes to her. She's either going to be force sensitive or something along those lines. But I mean, there's a reason why she looks different from the others. There's something special about her that the Kaminoans, or whatever however you say their names, are keeping her. Keeping her basically a secret. Sounds like even from the Empire, something is different about her. I think we found that out when she was able to shoot that gun out of what is his name, Crosshair's hand, just out of nowhere, and she's like, well, it's just a lucky shot. Of course, it's not a lucky shot. Something else is going on in the situation. But I thought that was actually kind of, she was the worst part of the episode to me. Her and that little robot kind of going around in that little area in places that they weren't supposed to go. I'm kind of like, it was a little bit too easy for them to be able to just randomly go around places like that. Yes, of course they got caught, but at the same time, I'm like, I just don't like anything about her so far. I just really don't. I kind of feel like, she's going to be that special character, kind of like a Rey character. And I'm not saying Rey as in she's going to be really one-dimensional or anything like that. But I'm like, you know what? We kind of seen that with Grogu. We've seen it with Rey. This where you see these characters and you know that there's something special about them, and then that's going to be the grand secret throughout the series. And I'm like, I don't really know if I want to go down that route again. I feel like we've already gone down that road with Grogu, I feel like we don't really need to go through it with Omega as well. I was really shocked. I expected Tarkin to be the overall main villain, which I think he does do a great job of it. But Crosshairs, I was really shocked that he's turning out to be really the main antagonist of the series. Like, let's face it, yeah, Tarkin is in the background, kind of like the Emperor, but at the same time, Crosshair is going to be almost kind of be used as an Inquisitor in this one, and that's going to be kind of weird and strange that they're going down that route necessarily. That his inhibitor chip acted differently, than the others, and he basically turned on his brothers. I didn't know if I necessarily liked that route. I kind of felt like the back and forth between him and Hunter throughout this episode was good, except for I felt like it could have been a little bit more confrontational. I felt like, when Hunter was being challenged, he could have been like, whoa, whoa, wait a second here, buddy. I'm the one that's in charge. You just follow your orders with me. Stop being worried about those other orders. You follow the orders from me. I'm the one that's in charge. He never did that. Instead, he kind of just blew it off. And I was kind of like, that would have been a great moment for confrontation, I believe. I would have really have enjoyed that. But now, as far as Tarkin is concerned, Tarkin is going to be a really nice villain for this series. Yeah, he doesn't have powers, but there is something really dark and sinister about Tarkin. I don't feel like you always got to have a Sith in the background. Okay, let me rephrase that. I do prefer it when they do have a Sith in the background, but not every series needs that. I feel like this series kind of being a spinoff of the Clone Wars, I feel like it doesn't necessarily, they don't have to bring out the big guns for it. So I'm like, Tarkin works for what they're doing with this. So yeah, I'm cool with him as being the main villain of this. I hope it continues to stay that way. I also hope that we get to see a little bit more Saw Gerrera. I hope Saw Gerrera gets to be a bigger, more intricate, plays a more intricate part of this show. I think he will. I think that's what they're kind of hinting at to a certain extent. I don't know who at the end of the episode the friend is that they're going to see. I don't know if it's Saw Gerrera. Probably not. It's probably going to be somebody that we've seen in the Clone Wars series, which I might like, I might not like. I keep going through this route of I feel like they need to not include so many of the Clone Wars characters. Create characters on your own. Yes, you can always fall back on some of the ones that we already know, but don't make this every episode something of who are we going to see this episode kind of show. I don't think we need that. So yeah, but that being said, I am hoping that we do get to see a little bit more Saw Gerrera. I really enjoyed him in the Clone Wars. I thought he was a really interesting character. I love to see him going more to the dark side, as time progresses. And now, we got to see the younger version of him, the beginning versions of him, and of course we got to see the ending versions of him in the movie, in the movies. But I feel like this part in between is what we're going to see in the Bad Batch, and I'm really looking forward to that part of it. But I mean, overall, I don't really have very, very many bad things to say about this show. I know I've said a few things, but they're not overly dramatic parts of it that I'm like, oh, geez, if they continue going down this route, I'm not going to watch it. And there was no moment in there of that. I did feel like there was some moments that there was a kind of a little bit of a lull, where they're trying to figure out what is going on exactly, and I'm kind of like, y'all already kind of know what's going on. Y'all have already discussed that. That inhibitor chip, something's going on. With Order 66, they kind of know what's going on, and I just kind of felt like they stayed in that confused state maybe a little bit too long this episode. Them dropping there was one scene though that did kind of stick out to me, and I don't exactly know why, but it was a really dark scene. It was where they're showing that body being taken out, and that lightsaber falls from it. For some reason, that bothered me. I don't know. It kind of just showed how these Jedi were just basically just annihilated. I mean, just overnight. And it was really left with a dark, dark feel to it. That one scene. And I think that scene kind of portrayed the entire episode as a whole of, the extermination of the Jedi. And, of course, that's always going to have dark roots all the way around. But it was just an interesting scene to just portray that fact of just how sinister what had gone on happened, or was, and how it happened, and just the epic scale of it, basically galaxy wide. So I mean that was kind of interesting in that regard. But overall, I thought the pacing was really good. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed most of the characters, except I didn't really enjoy Omega that much. I hate she's going to be a bigger part of the series. Like I said, it seems like, her story is going to be the big reveal for this series, and I might love it, I might hate it. I just hate that every Star Wars show now we've got to go down this big reveal thing, and I'm like, no, let's just see some good old fashioned Star Wars. I mean, that's the fun part about the Bad Batch is, just like there's nothing. Yes, there is something special about them from a clone perspective, but as far as them just being, having force powers or anything like that, they don't have that. These are guys that are just brutes that go in there and they take care of business. They're really skilled in what they do. Basically, really what they've turned into instead of soldiers is assassins. And I thought that was a really nice. I thought Saw Gerrera in this episode portrayed that really well. Where he's like, hey, we're fighting soldiers and droids. Now you're sent to kill innocents, women, children, and so forth. And these are the rebels. These are your droids now that you're going to have to go take out. So basically, they turn from, soldiers to assassins overnight. And I think that was the real moment where it started becoming real to them of like, oh man, there's no going back at this point. Like we're not a part of this. We're not going to go any further when it comes to the Empire. So I thought that was kind of a really telling moment in this episode. I mean, only thing I worry about. There's a couple things I actually worry about. I don't want this whole thing to be about individuality. Look, the Bad Batch in itself just is, we kind of get it. They're individuals on their own. They're not your typical clones. I don't feel like we need to make a whole season of, individuality. Because that kind of goes without saying. These guys, it's not like they're learning to be different from the other clones. They were already different and not accepted by the other clones. And to a certain extent, that was a weak part of this episode. Was I felt like it made the lack of emotion and ability by the other clone troopers made their choice really easy. So like there wasn't this back and the forth in a lot of their minds of like, should we, be good soldiers or should we not? Like the choice was very clear. It was night and day for them. And it made it a little bit too easy. And to me, that would have been a great emotional aspect if they would have made that a harder choice. I don't want this show to be the Clone Wars clone, basically. I wish it would be a little bit different, even though I will admit I did enjoy aspects of the Clone Wars from this. But at the same time, I kind of want this to be a show on its own. But it doesn't look like it's necessarily going down that route. It looks like it is going to be a clone of the Clone Wars. If that makes any sense. So yeah, it's just going to be another continuation of it. But overall, I would definitely give this I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Simply because, like I said, there's nothing really that original about these characters. Nothing. Nothing originality. No originality when it comes to the way this series looks or the way this series feels. This really just feels like a continuation of the Clone Wars. So in that regard, I'll give it a lower grade than a 9, simply because of that one factor. Yes, I thought there was a little bit of some lulls in there that could have been weeded out a lot quicker. But besides that, and I mean that, and I felt like there was a little bit too many cameos in it already, and I feel like there's going to be a lot more later on. So it kind of gives me the worry of, okay, is this show going to be able to stand on its own? That's one thing about it. But overall, I thought it was a solid show. Um, Looking forward to future episodes of it. Looking forward to the rest of the season. This is going to be a season, or where that I'm looking forward to every single episode. It looks like, because I mean, hey, it got off to a great start. I don't really see it changing that much. Like I said, I think it's just going to be the Clone Wars continuation, and I really enjoyed the Clone Wars. So for once, I'm kind of cool with that. Even though I wish that they would have gone maybe in a different route. Like, they don't have to go like in a Rebels route or anything like that, but just make it just a little bit different than what the Clone Wars actually was. But overall, guys, let me know what y'all think down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you looking forward to the rest of the season? Do you felt like it was a little bit too much of the Clone Wars? Do you feel that it was that it stood on its own? Let me know down in the comment section what you think. As always, guys, thanks for watching.